Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week. My name is Cammy Bell. I'm your host as always. And I was thinking, as I was looking on Wednesday afternoon, what on earth am I going to talk about? Because it doesn't seem that exciting to try and get the support revved up for what I'm not too sure could be called a glamour tie at the Smeesma Stadium in Paisley on Saturday as Rangers start to see out the remainder of the season against St Mirren on Saturday afternoon. However, Rangers decided to throw a few curveballs my way with a whole plethora of announcements, and here to talk to me about some of them, and freshly hot off the heels of the CEO Fans Forum held across Ibrox earlier on tonight, is Colin McMillan. Colin, we're recording this late on Wednesday. You are literally just in the door, but thank you so much for joining me. Keen to hear how the event went, and we'll talk through some of the announcements that came from Rangers on Wednesday.
Yeah, hi mate. Yeah, it's a pleasure to speaking to you. And it is late, but it's not as late as we normally do this nonsense. So
Yeah, the European dream has taken care of that, I'm afraid.
yeah, indeed, we'll roll on in our few months of not doing that. But a busy wee day for Rangers. I was sort of thinking that myself. I was thinking I was going along to this CEO forum, and I wasn't expecting to get a lot of kind of concrete answers or a lot of major news come out of it, just because so much is still in the air and there's so much that I think we all kind of know is happening, but they can't really confirm is happening. And then they just hit out with press release. So yeah, it's good of them to give us content, even when we're not got games to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Colin, I'm a big proponent of the CEO Fans Forum. I think I was at the last one actually for Heart and Hand, and I enjoy the format of it. I think pretty much the entire stage that was there with Bisgrove, Philippe Clement, a whole number of people have since left their positions now, and obviously the picture has very much changed. But what was your main takeaways from the fans forum? Did you feel it was worthwhile? Did you feel Patrick Stewart held his own? How did you feel it all went?
It was a really good evening actually. Yeah, it was hosted by Nick Thompson, who has been at Rangers a long time. But some other kind of more newer faces on the stage with him: Patrick Stewart, James Taylor, and Greg Mailer made up the main sort of four that started the show. There was a brief break halfway through, and they were joined for the second half by Natalie Nairn. So there was plenty of kind of different levels of experience and different sort of levels of the club and areas of the club represented, and able to answer most questions. That was good. A big caveat of the night, Cammy, was that so much of what they're talking about and so much of the plans and so much of the answers to so many of the questions are all dependent upon new ownership and the takeover going through. Obviously, there was the statement tonight. The club pretty much confirmed that the takeover talks are not a long way going. They're well into the conversations. They named them and stuff like that, which is good. But a lot of the answers that were given to questions like, how's the search for a new manager coming along? What's the summer budget going to be? What's the recruitment strategy? Are you going to make improvements to the stadium? All these sorts of questions were all sort of hesitant a little bit because they can't commit to anything for sure. That led to a really interesting and very well asked question by someone actually who asked about how can you be so far along with these plans for all these different things if a takeover is going to happen and the new regime could come in and just say, we don't like any of your ideas, we're not doing that, we don't want him as manager, we don't want to do this, etc. And they basically said that as part of the whole due diligence and part of the whole investigation that goes into any sort of takeover of this size for any business, never mind just a football club, conversations about the potential new owner's plans and how they want to do things become sort of paramount to whether the current custodianship of the club want to sell to them or not. And they quickly find out if they're aligned in terms of their strategy and what they want to do. And it seems from Patrick Stewart tonight that all the sort of plans that the club are looking to do, all the sort of aims that they have over the short, medium and long-term future are shared by the prospective new owners as well. They're not really going down a road that's potentially going to be uplifted and changed very, very quickly, which I think is key because we've been through far too much change recently. We've been through far too many. Try to change the whole squad in a summer, changing managers every year, etc. We need some sort of stability. We need something we can grow from. And we need to really just start making a proper plan and sticking to it. So that was quite reassuring. Obviously, they can't shake hands on deals and they can't directly agree things because the sale hasn't gone through and stuff, but they seem to have a plan in place. It's a plan that prospective new owners are also behind, and it means they can get started now with the plans for next season and get started with recruiting a manager, recruiting a certain type of player to play a certain way and all this sort of stuff, knowing that should the new kind of custodianship come in and take over, they're not going to be ripping all that up. And I think that was a really important point to hear tonight, that those conversations and those discussions that they're having are that far along and that far ahead. And I think the fact that we got that statement tonight from the club pretty much tells us that this takeover is happening. They're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And I think we've kind of expected that for a while, Cammy, but they can't talk about it. They can't release things like this until it gets to a certain stage. And I think that's a big, big step tonight for that statement to come out. This is happening. This isn't going away. And I think it's quite safe that we now kind of know that the club are making plans, starting them and working on them with the new group in mind as well.
Yeah, I'll cover that statement just in case if anyone hasn't had a chance to read it. It's 2 sentences long, so I think that probably speaks to the fact that it's as much as they can possibly say at the moment. Rangers and its existing controlling shareholders are in productive conversations with the 2 lead members of the consortium, Andrew Kavanagh and the 49ers Enterprises Global Football Group, about the potential for the consortium to acquire control of the club and to inject additional capital. These discussions reflect a shared recognition of the importance of Rangers FC's long-term direction, ambitions and management. So, yeah, I think probably to kind of tack on to what you just said, Colin, I feel, I mean, firstly, it's it's not a secret. I think we've known a lot of this has been happening for quite a good wee while now. I think it's incredibly tough to keep secrets of this size in Glasgow, unless you're Maurice Johnson. And moreover, to your point around whether or not these conversations are taking place in conjunction with, you know, the 49ers Global Football Group, I can't see as to how they aren't involved in some degree in terms of some of the longer term and strategic planning aspects of it. Was there anything mentioned in any more detail regarding the review that had been taking place? Obviously, it's been happening for a number of months now. I don't know if Patrick Stewart spoke any more to that.
The one of the first questions was asked about what was said at the AGM back in, I think it was November, maybe early December, I can't quite remember. The fact that they announced a complete change to governance was going to happen at that AGM. There was a plan to give more empowerment to the day-to-day management of the team, or the club, I should say, which was where the guys on stage really come into it. So Patrick Stewart, James Taylor, and now Greg Mailer, they are now the day-to-day runners of the football club. That kind of change to the governance of the club that happened after the last AGM means that for the vast majority of decisions that have been made since then and will happen until the takeover, they 3 guys are really empowered to make those decisions and make things happen. Previously, every kind of mid to large decision was having to get run by and taken through by the whole board, but they empowered the 3 of them to actually make pretty much all the decisions they need to make, and on a day-to-day basis by the people who are here in the country running the club, which must make things a hell of a lot easier. They did caveat and say there's still major things that have to go to the board. So obviously selling the club will go to the board first of all. Things like sacking and recruiting a new manager, that would go to board level, but those 3 guys would give their opinion. They'd say, we're thinking this guy's the right way to go. It would go to the board for sign off. But for the vast majority of things now, they're actually free and empowered to just make their own decisions and make things happen, which seems a hell of a lot easier. Big thing off the back of that was getting a sporting director in place. I'm sure we'll be talking about that now. And then there's a whole other bunch of things in terms of changes that we're all relying on that sporting director being employed and being put into position. And I think a lot of things will start to kick off and happen now that they're going to be in place and they can start making decisions as well.
Yeah, we'll cover the sporting director announcement as well, far more meat in the bones than the previous statement. Rangers Football Club is delighted to announce the appointment of Kevin Thelwell as sporting director. Thelwell, 51, will join the Light Blues from Everton following expiry of his contract with the Toffees. The appointment of a sporting director at Rangers was made a priority in the football review, which was instigated at the beginning of the year. Thelwell will assume overall responsibility for all areas of the football operation, including men's, women's and academy. Thelwell's journey in the professional game began as the director of youth at Preston North End before taking on academy manager roles at Derby County and Wolverhampton Wanderers, respectively. In 2016, Thelwell was appointed sporting director at Wolverhampton Wanderers, where he was responsible for all areas of football operations, including player recruitment, performance, medical analysis, and the academy. He then moved to the United States to become head of sport at New York Red Bulls, overseeing the sport strategy and operations across their MLS team and affiliated clubs. In 2022, he returned to England to take up the role of director of football at Everton, leading on first-team recruitment, academy development and implementation of the club's overall strategy. Speaking after accepting his new role, Thelwell said, "This is a huge honour for me to be joining a club with the size, stature and expectations of Rangers. From the first conversations, it was clear to me how ambitious the club is. I'm excited to play a part in shaping its next chapter. I know how much Rangers means to so many people, and that brings both responsibility and motivation. Rangers needs to win, that's the bottom line. There is a strong foundation already in place, and I look forward to working closely with the teams across the men's, women's and academy programmes to build something that delivers consistently. Of course, there's important work ahead, especially in the men's first team structure, but we'll approach it with energy and purpose. While change takes time, I'm confident that we can make real progress, and I can't wait to get started." CEO Patrick Stewart added, "I'm delighted to be welcoming Kevin to the club following a rigorous recruitment process. Our football review quickly identified the need to appoint a sporting director, and in Kevin, we have found an outstanding candidate with terrific experience with the Premier League and MLS. It will be the role of Kevin, with the full support of myself and the board, to lead our football department and deliver results our supporters expect and deserve." So, as I say, that came out late on Wednesday evening. And very interesting, I think, Colin, that for once, in what feels like a very long time, we've been able to bring in someone at a level of which they've got experience, unlike being able to try and ask someone to step up into a role that they probably haven't done before. Certainly well-travelled, obviously, as I mentioned, some of the clubs in England that were mentioned within the statement there, but also some of his experience across in the US as well. What has been interesting, I think, Colin, I've looked through some of the reaction and looking through some of the Everton message boards, been able to try and reach out to a couple of people to get thoughts, etc. I think one of the things that is been a bit of a recurring theme in terms of what they've came back with and what they've kind of discussed with him is that he inherited an absolute mess at Everton when he walked in the door and was able to slice through quite a lot of, the bureaucratic nonsense and been able to start looking at things like lowering the average age of the squad, been able to start to negotiate how to reduce expenditure, mostly in terms of wages. So he's someone that has shown that he's able to produce whilst working with relatively confined budgets. He can invoke change and he can bring modicums of success in terms of where that sits at now. The flip side of that coin, as I know that people will always enjoy a good back and forth, is Glasgow as its own entity. Now, I do acknowledge there's definitely similarities between Glasgow and Liverpool in terms of football-obsessed cities with huge divides and, the requisite demands that come from them. But what will be interesting will be how he operates in terms of what players he looks at being able to try and bring in. If he brings in talent himself to be able to come in to fit particular roles that we need to fit, like, so for example, from within the academy, etc., because we know that that's been a huge focus over the last few years, that it fundamentally hasn't been fit for purpose. He's going to have to work within a slightly different political landscape than I'm sure he's probably used to. But all of these things, I think he'll get to grips with them pretty quickly. From what I can understand, he seems, like I say, that he won't take time to settle into a role and miss opportunities. I think he'll be looking to step that up from pretty much the first minute he starts. And I think it's an encouraging appointment. I'm going to be honest. I think that we've struggled at times to understand truly what a sporting director should do and where their remit begins and ends. I'm encouraged with the fact that we brought someone in from down south where they have had operating models that can work in progressive succession, productive succession. So all in all, I feel that this is a quite an interesting appointment by the board.
Yeah, I think it's positive, Cammy. I really do. First and foremost, just getting your last point there, we brought on someone who already does the job. We're not giving somebody an opportunity to see how they do the job. We're not recruiting somebody above their station. We're not promoting somebody from within. We're bringing in a tried and tested sporting director that's done the job, done it at a high level. That shouldn't be an accolade that we're so happy about, but it's not something we've done for a while. We've been too many kind of jobs for the lads mentality, promoting people above their means, above their station, etc. So yeah, I think him and Patrick Stewart are kind of big moves ahead of this change in regime at the club, because we brought people in from the higher levels of football. The EPL is the biggest league in the world. It's got the most money out of all the leagues in the world. And if you're working at that level there, then you must have something about you. And he has done a good job. I know Everton are a bit of a basket case for a club at times, and they've had their ups and downs recently. But if you look at what they've done financially under him, they are now running a negative net spend on transfers. They've reduced their wage bill and their agent fees. They've managed to do that and manage that during the whole process of building a brand new stadium. And they've done that and managed to remain in the Premier League during that time as well. And if you talk about pressure, I can't imagine there's much more pressure in that EPL than building a brand new stadium like that and potentially facing relegation at the same time. And he's managed to make sure that didn't happen at the same time, keeping them right in terms of transfer spend and reducing the bills. So a lot of good stuff there from him. Plenty of experience as well, just in terms of roles he's had as well. Obviously, he's ran football academies. He's been head of football operations and recruitment. He's been sporting director before. He's worked under a previous old director of football model. He worked at the FA as a director of football education. He holds the UEFA Pro licence, which is the highest coaching qualification you can get in European football. And he's written books on coaching. So this is a guy that really knows his stuff, Cammy, and you would imagine he's going to be integral to all the football part of our game going forward, in terms of he's going to have his fingers in many pies, and for once he'll actually know what he's doing there. And it all kind of makes sense in terms of, they're wanting somebody that can come in, they're wanting the whole club to have this new attitude, this new better way of working, everything sort of joined up. And he's hopefully going to be an important piece that other things now follow behind now that he's in position. The obvious one for me is the academy. Our biggest opportunity to save money as a football club is improving our academy by bringing through players. We've not done enough of it. The ones we've brought through haven't been good enough. And we've currently got an academy that doesn't have a head working in it at the minute. Since Zeb Jacobs left a fair bit ago now. Haven't replaced him because we didn't have a sporting director to do it. We've got one now. So one of his first jobs will be sorting that out, amongst other things. So yeah, like I say, I think now he's in place, a lot of other things will fall into place as well, starting with the academy, starting with everything else. And on paper, looking at him, I'm going to be honest, before yesterday I didn't know a lot about him, but I have found out about him since. Makes me quietly optimistic that he is the right guy, because on paper he certainly seems to have all the qualifications and the experience in doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand you're absolutely right about the academy. I do agree it's a priority, but I think the one that probably surpasses it at the moment is a new manager. And that, for me, it also gives me encouragement, because I suppose my fear with the scar tissue that I've had in the past is that we've spoken about this role in so many different ways, but where we've needed, I suppose the best way I can place this, where we've needed that structure is to have a sporting director that oversees the football operations, which includes the men's first team manager. And we've had too many previous managers of a recent history who have attempted to do the things that you've spoken about there, in terms of, that player recruitment, that being able to try and assist with the academy, even though it's not part of their remit, but it's been rudderless for quite a wee while. And all of those things, for me, I think, add up to this idea that a sporting director being able to come in and start to implement that philosophy, the methodology, I suppose, that we're looking to be able to get, will be interesting to see if he places that at the top of his priority list. My hope is, and I think you and I discussed this a few weeks ago, that whilst I don't believe that Barry Ferguson should be given the manager's job, and I'm not trying to be purposely disrespectful to him. I just don't think that the results domestically have made the case for him. I'd be happy if Ferguson uses his time at Rangers to reignite the spark in him to be able to consider, restarting his managerial career. If he goes off, gets some experience, builds his way back up, and then comes back to Rangers with far more experience that he has currently, then fantastic. Because there's definitely capabilities he's got there. I just think it's too soon for him.
Yeah.
But what I would like him to be able to do is work with Thelwell and maybe just get an overview of the squad as things stand currently, because I do believe that Barry Ferguson can look at these players and he still has time for assessment across the course of the next 5 games, including some big ones against some fairly heavy hitters. What we need to be able to do is get an understanding of how truly fit the squad is for those players who want to be here for season 25-26. And who Ferguson believes, the passion is gone, the desire is gone, because we can't go back into that routine again of keeping players here who are on inflated wages and we're just simply not getting enough bang for our buck. That would be interesting to me if those guys have that discussion across the course of the next few weeks.
I think that's got to happen. I think it's integral because we're looking at such a big turnover of talent in the summer. We just can't get rid of a full squad as much as we'd maybe like to. So yeah, there needs to be a conversation that's happened with Barry Ferguson, Billy Dodds, Alan McGregor, Neil McCann, and whoever's in power after that. Even if it's really something as simple as putting up a poster of the squad and just doing good guy wank, they need to do something, Cammy, just to show what's been happening. And it shows, even more importantly, which of the players does he feel have really given it their all in these last 3 months, these last 6 months, whatever it might end up being. Because that's probably more important. This season's been written off, apart from Europe, for a while now. Who's still went into training and giving it their all? Who could he rely on during his time here? And if they're a decent enough footballer, they're capable of still having a place in the squad, but they've shown that mentality over the last couple of months, they might be worth sticking around. So I think their opinions on players is important, more so than ever this pre-season.
I think it's interesting when you talk about, obviously we head to Paisley on Saturday afternoon, and in normal circumstances, and what we'd always hope is that we've got the last Old Firm game of the season coming up. It's completely meaningless. I fully expect that by the time that we kick off in Paisley on Saturday, Celtic will have got the league title.
Yeah.
But we're now again at the stage where we get to a final Old Firm game and it's completely meaningless. Now, I know that will change because I always enjoy beating them. So I dare say when I'm recording, any of the pods across the course of the next week, I'll already start to, have a little bit of the battlefield for building because it's unavoidable during Old Firm games for me. But I would see this as a test to be able to say to these players, you've got to show me what you can get, because albeit there'll be major surgery taking place in the Rangers team, I still want Celtic to know that we can go toe-to-toe with them. I don't want the performance at Parkhead to be a one-off. I want us to show that actually there's players here who understand how important it is beating you, because you hate us and we hate you. And that's what, for me, we've missed out of a number of the last Old Firm games of, the last few years, that we've not taken that really into account. I'm not talking about getting in and batting people and putting people up, but what I'm talking about is not having the fear of playing against them. We've shown an upturn for that, and Ferguson was able to get that great result at Parkhead. I'm not saying for a single minute that result changed anything in terms of the league dynamic. It was well done and dusted before Ferguson even walked in the door. But this is a chance now for players to say, I want to play well in Paisley because I want to be considered for the Old Firm game. I want to use that same energy, against Hibs, against Aberdeen, because as far as I'm concerned, my future is here, and this is an opportunity for me as a player to show that I'm willing to still do it, irrespective of the fact that these games are effectively meaningless.
Yeah, we need to find some purpose of these games, Cammy. Otherwise, we've got 5 absolutely pointless, boring, awful games of football approaching us that none of us want as people that enjoy watching football and more importantly enjoy watching Rangers. So yeah, it's an opportunity for players that want to be here to show us that that's the case. It's also an opportunity to remind Celtic who we are and what we're capable of. Head to head with them this season, we've got the better of them. It's not the games against Celtic that have been the problem for us, sadly, this season. So it'll be good to reinforce that. Another victory. That'll put us, 3 victories, a loss and a draw in the cup against them this season. That's the kind of results against them head to head you'd expect us to go and win a league off the back of. We haven't, and that's neither here nor there now. But it's important that they know that we're still about, we're not scared of them, we're capable of lifting our game and performing against them with this current basket case of a squad under a manager we weren't happy with and a rookie, a new manager that's in on an interim basis, and we're able to do that as well. So let's put the fear up in what we're going to be capable of doing next season with a new regime, hopefully better players. It's going to be a better, more experienced manager and a better, well-run club as well. So if we can beat them again at this point, just remind them who we are, then it's important psychologically going into the new season.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. The final bit of news, which also came out on Wednesday as well, is the confirmation again, something which I think that we've all known about for a good wee while, Colin, that our kit manufacturer will be Umbro next season, but under the umbrella of Castore. Castore and Umbro have effectively got an agreement that Umbro will start to be picking up part of, well, a good number actually, of some of their football teams that they currently manufacture kits for. Castore are starting to branch out into other sports, etc. Umbro, I don't have an issue with. To be honest with you, maybe I'm a wee bit old in the tooth now, Colin, to really genuinely care too much who makes our kits at this point. But I say that at the same token that Umbro, for me, as a wee guy growing up and falling in love with Rangers, made some of the most classic strips I've ever had. Be interesting to see how that transpires into what I think will still be some fairly fierce assessment at times of the kits themselves and materials that come out. I don't know if they'll follow the Castore circumstance of bringing out a new training range every 3 weeks or whatever it's going to be, but I fully expect another 5 kit season, I'm sure. I think as long as the kits are durable, and certainly not what Kenny Miller suggested, that they're so lightweight that Cyril Dessers can have it ripped off him and not a penalty. But that's a separate conversation. I'm pretty satisfied with Umbro, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I'm a 40-year-old man, so I buy the training gear for kicking about the house in and the hoodies for going to the game, so I don't really care what badge is on it or such. I genuinely do think it's a strange decision by Castore, though. I think basically their plan is now that Castore, the actual name Castore, is going to become a rugby brand, so all their rugby teams and stuff are going to start wearing just Castore. They've moved Umbro away from a couple of their existing rugby teams, and Umbro is going to become their kind of football brand. And they've got the license to kind of use the Umbro name and badge and all that going forward. It's still very much, we're not in a new deal with Umbro. We've just renewed the Castore deal with Castore, and they're going to use Umbro kits, or they're going to manufacture kits and put Umbro badges on them. It remains to be seen how it's going to be, what quality it's going to be like, but as far as I can make out, it is still Castore doing everything. They've just got the permission to start using the Umbro kit, whether that means that's Umbro materials or just the badges remains to be seen, like I say, because it's a brand new thing they've not done with MD else yet. The original Castore deal did end this year, so we were looking to do something. The only announcement about this so far, Cammy, which has raised a few eyebrows, is that the contract with Castore will continue for next season and beyond, is the wording they've used. So I don't think it's just like a 1 year extension while we wait for the takeover and then to get a bigger person in or a bigger company in or something like that. But there is no sort of confirmation yet about how long the contract's for, any sort of financial details other than what was mentioned at the CEO forum. Somebody asked the question if the new contract is similar to the old one, in that the more we buy, the more we make. Is there little trigger levels that we have to hit as a club that promotes extra payments and things like that? And that was confirmed that was the case. So that's all we really know about it so far. It's still Castore. I would still imagine we're going to have the Castore shop at New Edmiston House. I think we're going to see the Castore logo still about there and stuff, because they're still overseeing it all. It's their distribution centres that's going to be sending all the stuff out. It's very much, here's the new guys, but it's still the old guys.
Yeah, very true. Very true. We'll just have to see what the new kits are going to be like. But if they're going to continue in the Castore theme of some homage to some of the earlier strips, then yeah, as I say, I'm all for that because there's a few in particular that I'd like to see how they could renew the design on as well. But
Yeah,
we will wait and see.
just do what I do. Wait until this time of the season and everything's a tenner. So buy it then.
Yeah, very true. Very true. That would be the only thing that I would ask is if they could have a wee review of the pricing because yeah, these things they're not
It's,
cheap nowadays.
it's not cheap, Cammy. It's what I think is a bit ridiculous is the fact that there is hoodies and stuff that come out costing £60, £65 and they're now getting sold for a tenner.
Yeah.
They must still be making money at a tenner. So yeah, it is mad, but I don't think that's going to change. And I guess we as a club can't really afford for it to change either, sadly. So it's where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, that will do us for extra this week. A little bit more of a kind of news update and breaking news kind of bulletin rather than having a quick review of the previous game and a preview of the upcoming game. If you would like to get a preview of our game against St Mirren, then please head on over to our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/heart and hand. We have a wealth of previous pods and content that you can delve into our archive on, but we will bring you all of the news as we get it as well over on that site. And that will continue into the summer as well, folks. And I really don't know how you can afford to miss out on that, given all the things that Colin and I have discussed and all of the upcoming changes that are happening down Edmondson Drive. Thank you so much to our producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. Thank you so much to you all for listening. But again, having done another late shift and he's still under the weather, but what an absolute trooper. Thank you, Colin, for coming on and joining me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Folks, David will be back with you on Monday with the flagship to unpack everything that happens in Paisley on Saturday afternoon. Have a brilliant weekend. Hope you enjoy yourselves, and I'll speak to you again next week. Thanks all. Bye-bye.